Everyone, let me welcome the Honorable Roosevelt Skerrit, Prime Minister, as well as members of Cabinet, the Cabinet Secretary, the Permanent Secretary in the Office of the Prime Minister, members of the media. Good morning and welcome to this press conference of the Honorable Roosevelt Skerrit. As usual, we will begin with opening remarks from the Prime Minister and then take questions from the media. Please welcome Prime Minister Skerrit.
Good morning to everyone, those present in this room, and of course, very importantly, those who are following the live broadcast of this monthly press conference. I want to also thank the members of the press for being here, as well as all of our friends across the globe. I always welcome these opportunities to address the issues of concern and interest to the Dominican people, and I look forward to your usually tough questions. I first wish to state my condemnation and that of the government of the attempted assassination of the former President Donald Trump over the weekend. I hold firm that violence and the incitement of violence have no place in our world and society and should be condemned by all. We must learn to respect and uphold the expression of diverse views by all. We wish the former president a speedy recovery. I also wish to inform the nation that the 2024-2025 budget address will be presented on Friday, July 26, 2024, by the Minister for Finance. Like always, we will seek to present a fiscal package that responds to the social and economic realities of our citizens, with policies designed to make a positive impact on their lives and livelihoods, taking into consideration the current global realities. The fact is, the world over, countries are grappling with the economic fallout of geopolitical conflicts, disease and disaster, which have resulted in inflation, loss of income, and an increase in inequality. Here in Dominica, we are not immune to these economic shocks, but we have persisted in investing in social safety nets and the productive sectors to counteract adverse impacts, and also to keep our people in jobs, keep our young people in universities, and provide support to households and small businesses to ensure economic stability. We are also pursuing several big ticket projects. For example, the International Airport, the Carbridge Marina, roads enhancement, agriculture and fisheries, the digital economy, the Lubia to Grand Bay Road project, and the geothermal plant, among others. All in an effort to help drive economic growth in a number of sectors, taking us closer to the dynamic Dominica we are all envisioning. This year's budget will focus on our efforts to consolidate the gains we have made in recent years and outline priorities and measures to further stimulate economic activity, create employment, and improve long-term efficiency in the administration of our country's affairs. The Minister of Finance will also be expected to outline a new structure for the nursing service in Dominica, with the creation of several new positions, which will allow for the upward mobility of our nurses and to recognize their specialized and specialist training. And from all reports, in our discussions with nurses, they seem to be very excited about this new approach the government is taking when nurses are concerned. We have listened to the recommendations of those who participated in the recent consultations, and I believe this budget has something to benefit every citizen. I am confident that the Dominican people will be pleased with the budget presentation and its contents. In respect to electoral reform, let me take this opportunity to provide a brief update on electoral reform. As I've said before, and I mean this very sincerely, we are committed to the reform and modernization of Dominica's electoral processes to continue with our tradition of free and fair elections, but also to ensure that that all Dominican citizens have the option to elect the government of their choice as long as they qualify to vote in Dominica. We want to strengthen our electoral system, promoting clear, open processes to ensure trust and integrity, equal access and opportunities for all eligible voters to participate, and impartiality in the conduct of our elections. In May of this year, we provided draft electoral reform legislation to the Electoral Commission for review and feedback, aiming to take the legislation to the Parliament within the shortest possible time frame. However, the Electoral Commission has written to me requesting additional time until the end of July 2024 to review the document. I have informed the chairman of my no objection to the request. We look forward to receiving their recommendations at the end of July, and as I have said before, I am quite open to receiving and reviewing submissions on the proposed legislation from members of the public, including electoral reform interest groups. However, we must be willing to strike a reasonable balance. We have already gone through an exhaustive consultative phase in full view of the public and with the participation of the same people who seem to want us to delay and stall the process with more consultations. However, this government's focus is to bring this process to a close by passing the legislation in the Parliament and shifting our full attention to fostering economic growth in our country. As I've previously indicated, I intend to join some of my regional colleague prime ministers on a trip to St. Vincent and the Grenadines Tuesday, July 16th, that's tomorrow, to meet with Comrade Ralph Gonzalez and view firsthand the damage caused by Hurricane Beryl in the Grenadines. Like we did in Grenada last week, we will pledge our support to the affected countries and keep sounding the call for urgent and comprehensive climate financing reform. The devastation in Carriacou and Petit Martinique is near total, and I was struck once again by how these intense hurricanes are destroying livelihoods, uprooting communities, and causing severe trauma to our people. We no longer have the luxury of sitting idly by as mere observers. The time for climate action is now, and this government will intensify its efforts to build resilience and rally more decisive and impactful action from the developed countries who should bear the bulk of the responsibility for this climate crisis. You will hear more from me on this in the coming weeks and months as my advocacy on this matter continues. I urge our citizens to remain vigilant as we go through this hurricane season together. Let us continue to prepare and keep ourselves informed as the season progresses. As I always stress, we must all play an active role in protecting our families, property, and communities against the threat of severe weather. Your government will always have your back, but we must take personal responsibility for our own safety and security. And just to say that the government of Dominica will make a contribution to the affected countries in the tune of $1 million EC each for the countries affected. I believe that we have a duty, an obligation, both moral and ethical, to stand in solidarity with those who are affected, as it did for us on so many countless occasions in the recent past. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prime Minister, for your introductory remarks. At this point, we open the floor for questions from members of the media, starting with Carlisle John Baptist of Nature Isle News.
Thank you very much, Madam Press Secretary. Mr. Prime Minister, government is owing a debt of $140,000 to the credit union, that is the Central Cooperative Credit Union, for rental of that building, Discover Dominica. They've not paid at the last AGM. They've been crying and saying that they've given notice. When will government be honoring that commitment? That is one. Domlec. What is really happening to Domlec yet again? And it's very hot, PM. It's difficult. Electricity going left, right, and center. Number three, it is my understanding that a special prosecutor was supposed to come down with the murder of the Canadian people, and the matter is at an advanced stage. But information reaching me indicate that payment has not been forthcoming to the special prosecutor, and as a result, he has not been on island, and the matter, which is supposed to start or continue sometime next week, seems to be at a lull. Can you give us an update on that, please? I will come back after Curtis for my second shot.
My understanding with regards to this $140,000 with the NCCU is that this is Central Covenant. I think there has been some transition issue between the previous owner and the current owner. And so this is where the Ministry of Tourism and the other government entities needed to reconcile these matters. That's as far as I'm concerned. And my understanding from the ministry is that that has been resolved in terms of the transition, because remember the building was sold, all right? And so there was a transitional issue at that time, and that has been resolved. And I think once the budget is passed, then that credit union, that landlord will receive his payment. The payment. What I would like for there to be in this country is that with the same interest people have and take when government is owing, that I'm hoping that they take the same interest when they owe in government. And the millions that we have in taxes that have been collected by people. You know, the bread money that have been collected by people and not remitting to the treasury. And the significant acreage of land that we've sold that people have not paid, and in some cases people have even built on this land, that we need to have that same level of interest in remitting to the state. Because once the state opens with $5, everybody want to post on favor, government owing me. No LPOs. But the same company will owe the government 100 times more than what the government is owing. And maybe the government should post it on the front page of the newspapers and to say everybody's owing, so that we can do that. So I'm hoping that I can get a question from you next time, saying that from the government to me through you. The issue of Domlec, as I understand it, and of course my Domlec has said that they'll have a press conference today. Tomorrow, I am not. Domlec is a private company. I have intervened in the past to help because it has become a national issue, and we have done a number of things to assist Domlec. One, we gave Domlec a brand new generator owned by the government, and secondly, we're able to mobilize resources and acquired a 4.8 is it megawatt generator for Domlec, and to assist with the placing the infrastructure to locate this generator. My understanding is that that generator is being worked on to be commissioned and to add to the grid. But I believe the main issue, as far as the reports I've seen from Domlec, is that the hydro went down, and of course has placed a strain on the other diesel generators. So So this is where it is, and of course I'll leave the details for Dominic to address to the nation, because I think they have a duty, an obligation, to answer to the public on what's going on and what actions they're taking to have the situation remedied. But as you know, when this situation came about sometime last year and I intervened, we were able to bring the matter under control and stabilize it for a very long time. And of course, we also, Dominic paid for that, but rented the 2 or 3 generators from an American company to assist with the generation of electricity. And just to say to the public that both interventions of the government, that is to say, government giving to them like the generator from government-owned generator, we have not charged them anything for that. Though they do charging us for every kilowatt hour we spend, and maybe even overcharging us sometimes, I think. We don't charge them for that, and neither have we started charging them for the generators that we purchased for them. And we intend to charge them because they have to pay us, I think. But we have not imposed ourselves on it because we wanted to keep the cost of electricity down, because if we add this, then it's going to be added to your electricity bill, and all in effort to the government setting aside. So just to give you, now, these generators that we bought for Dominic, this generator for Dominic was not budgeted for, but we had to intervene, and that's money we could have used to pay some people we're owing. But to ensure that we can generate electricity without interruption, the government had to intervene. So these are some of the practical interventions the government has had to deal with over the years, in the last several months, which were not budgeted for. It's not our responsibility, but to ensure that we can stabilize the generation of electricity. In that case, we're able to supply it. But in respect to the current situation, I'd rather leave it to Dominic to speak to the nitty-gritty of the issue. And then I'm hoping that they'll have the press there, so you can pose your very direct questions to them, which you usually have. Okay? But I'm hoping that my response to you satisfy your questions for the time being, as I leave it to Dominic. The issue of the special prosecutor, I'm not aware of the points that you have raised, and I don't know them to be factual points that you've raised. The special prosecutor that we have used is a decent gentleman. He's from Trinidad. He is a man of integrity, and I'm not aware of any difficulty. This might be just part of the rumor mill, seeking to advance and undermine the efforts of the government to properly, or the state rather, to properly prosecute these cases. And so I leave it to the Attorney General to respond on the specific matters. I do like to discuss matters before the court. No, it's not. It's not. What you're saying is not factual, and so on. So that's not factual. The case, the services of the prosecutor is not at risk. The services of the prosecutor is not at risk at all. Not at all. Okay. All right. Curtis, please.
Curtis Matthew from DBS Radio. I have 2 questions in this first round. My first question is on campaign finance reform. In 2023, Prime Minister Skerrit, you said that the Treasury of Dominica would not fund any political party during campaigning for an election. That was said in 2023, and of course that was during the consultations on electoral reform. In recent time, though, you have said that you and government, you all are not really opposed to campaign finance reform. You're not opposed to that. And certainly that matter is being discussed by CARICOM heads with a view to going ahead with it, so to speak. So CARICOM heads, you've stated in recent time, they are in fact looking at campaign finance reform. Is that, Prime Minister Skerrit, a departure from your statement made in 2023? Second question, on a sports council for Dominica, we've seen that announcement has been made. Billy Doctrove, I think I'm told, is the one chairing the new sports council. So that body has been formed. I see some other prominent names on the council. What, though, is your vision, Prime Minister, for a sports council for Dominica? I'll come back again after Matt Peltier.
In respect to your first question about campaign financing, I believe you missed a constant phrase which I use in all of my utterances in respect to campaign financing. I have said very clearly that the government in 2023, prior to that, and now, that in principle, the government supports the notion of campaign finance reform. In principle. But I go on to say that this is a highly, based on the advice that we received, this is a highly technical matter, right? And this was discussed at the CARICOM meeting with some colleagues. And the view of the heads, I don't want to mention the heads there because it's not necessary, that we should look at this from a collective regional standpoint and come with common standards and common practices where campaign finance is concerned. My point about the Treasury is this. I don't believe that taxpayers' money should be used to finance campaigns in our countries. We don't have the ability, like the United States, for example, to print money. And what are you going to have? Politicians are sitting there idly by and don't make any efforts to raise funds, and the taxpayers must pay for lazy people to run elections? No. And the point I'm making in respect to campaign financing was never an issue raised in respect to electoral reform. As a matter of fact, there were two issues raised in the past by the opposition elements in respect to electoral reform. One, the list was bloated, and we need to cleanse the list. And two, voter ID cards. It was the government's considered view, and based on international direction and practice, that countries which had voter ID cards were moving towards national ID cards and replacing that replacing the voter ID cards. And we felt that if we're going to introduce an identification card to vote in Dominica, that we should bring one that would have multiple uses, especially within the OECS, for example, where you were able to travel in the OECS with a national ID card. So you will to use this. And if you have multiple uses and continuous use of this card, it is more than likely that you will keep it on your person and in a safe place, rather than using a card only to vote every 5 years. In an effort to advance this stalemate and to remove this stalemate and advance the process, the government decided, okay, if we don't agree with you on the voter ID card being the preferred nomenclature for this card, we'll go ahead with it. And I can tell you, even within my own party, people who are opposed to this. As a matter of fact, the majority of people with my party are opposed to going to voter ID card. But I believe as a leader, I have to provide leadership to the party and to the country. And I said, no, let's go with it. And then the other issue was what the voters list was bloated. And we decided we're going through a process of confirmation. We have to understand that we have to respect people's fundamental rights. And we are satisfied, based on advice that we receive from independent people as well, from the observers, the Commonwealth, the OAS, and others, that the confirmation process will achieve that objective. And so, every time we seek to make progress with regards to advancing and concluding this issue of electoral reform, the opposition elements will come up with something else. And now it is campaign financing. And I am satisfied the vast majority of Dominicans do not believe that this is going to deny people to vote in and deny an opportunity for free and fair elections. And our view is, you don't need to amend the Constitution at this time to address the concerns of where electoral reform is concerned. Because if you look at the reports from all of the observers, it never impinges on constitutional reform. Never. And we're saying that let us get the electoral reform agenda off the table by going to Parliament and giving the Electoral Commission the authority to effect it, and then let us start the process of constitutional reform. And all of those issues can be raised so that we go with a package where constitutional reform is concerned. And so we have submitted the documents, they're online. Persons who have an interest, submit your views. And so the point is, we're not going to delay this thing unduly. We have to move ahead. And so I am not opposed in principle to campaign finance. We have said so. And if you look at the draft legislation on campaign financing, this is something that requires very, very, very careful consideration. Very, very careful consideration. So we're not opposed to this on this day. Just to say, Carl, I got a note saying to me that the special prosecutor is currently on island. Okay? All right. The Sports Council. Yeah, the Sports Council has been appointed, and Mr. Billy Doctrove is the chairman, and you're quite right. There are a number of notable Dominicans on the commission, on the Sports Council. I had the opportunity to meet with Mr. Billy Doctrove earlier last week, and one of the things we discussed is this Sports Council, and some of the functions and the responsibilities of the Sports Council is, one, to look at the legislation, because legislation is an outdated one. I think it's 1976, and so we have assigned a draft person to them in the person of Mr. Laron, who will work with them in the redrafting or the drafting of new legislation to bring into effect the new legislation. But one of the things I discussed with Mr. Doctrove is the other thing that they can, in addition to what the Minister of Sports said to them by letter, is the drafting of or recommending a policy framework in the interim on how you treat with persons who have to represent Dominica overseas, but who are working, even for the government, for the public service. Because while we allow people to go out to represent Dominica with no hindrances in the public service, but there has to be rules, there has to be structure. Someone can't just wake up and say, I have to go to Guadeloupe tomorrow. No, we have to be in order into the place, because arrangements must be made for your replacement, temporary, and likewise in government entities. And so they will be drafting some policy recommendations for us, for both for government and for government entities, and hoping that the private sector would also, as an interim measure while we wait for the legislation, to follow suit. The lighting, I believe that once the budget is passed, we'll be in a position to address the issue of the lighting and move ahead with the contracting and get the lights going. It's an important piece of infrastructure that we need to put in place, and we look forward to finalizing the contractual arrangements with the supplier of the lights and so on, and so that we can get to that next level. Because, as you know, Dominica has become one of the preferred destinations or host nations for international cricket. And so we look forward to having those lights in place.
That could happen this year?
Yeah, we'll start this year for sure. Yeah, and I believe it may take about 4 or 5 months or thereabout to have it in place, as far as I've been told. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
It appears that Dominic is having, from what I gather from sources, having difficulty moving money from the Citizen by Investment Program through international banks to source programs like the airport and housing and other CBI-funded projects. How does government plan to resolve that situation?
The citizenship and residency programs the world over are having challenges where banking is concerned. So it is not, and if you speak to any of the countries in the Caribbean, they'll tell you so. If you speak to Malta, if you speak to any one of them, they'll tell you so. You have challenges in this. The bank has rules, and everybody has to respect the rules. I do not believe that the bank is being unduly unreasonable. You understand? They have to deal with correspondent banks, and we have been working with the banks on this. The banks has indicated the process to follow and the documentation that they need and so on, which are very transparent in my view. I saw them. I read them this morning again, which are very transparent rules. So there are times you will have challenges of some funds coming in, like every other business. There are many Dominicans who have challenges bringing, or Caribbean people, because this is why we've been talking, for example, of the risking that's taking place in the globe. We've been talking about for years. For years. I've been talking about this for 20 years on the issue of de-risking, and this is the issue that CARICOM has been preoccupied with, the Commonwealth has been preoccupied with. There are some banks within the Caribbean community space with no correspondent banking services, none. You know, so it's very, very difficult for developing countries like ours, and similarly to with regards to climate change. And I do not believe that our citizens appreciate and understand the complexities of this world, and so when we speak about these things, people must not see it as if it is a government issue. This is an everybody issue, because if you do not have correspondent banks, you're unable to trade with the rest of the world. You understand? You're unable to trade with U.S. currency, unable to trade with euros, unable to trade with pounds, unable to trade with any currency, and therefore it's absolutely important that all of us, and I've said so to the private sector entities when I meet with them, I say, look, you have to speak on these things, because if you do not speak on these things, and we in the Caribbean, we end up losing correspondent banking services, that's it for your business, because 98% of your transactions is also with the outside world by purchasing stuff from the outside world, and you have to make those payments to external accounts, and therefore you need the correspondent banks. Otherwise, banks in the Caribbean, there are many banks in the Caribbean and in the developed world that are largely just simply like credit unions. They cannot transact with the outside world, and so you have these challenges, but it's a challenge that you have to deal with on an ongoing basis.
So, Prime Minister, what is your alternative?
Well, no, I mean they are. We are addressing the issues. You know, there's no need, there's no intention on our part to make shortcuts or anything. I think we have to address the issue as it is, and to seek to find a solution to it. But I understand that it's a huge challenge. This is why you have many of the local contractors who haven't gotten the monies yet. It's not that the money is not available; it's unable to get them. Is inability or difficulty getting to them. You understand? And I'm happy that people are understanding these things. And we should not wait for it to affect us personally for us to appreciate the challenge that we are confronted with. And I was in Grenada last week, Wednesday. I went to visit CARICOM and Martinique, and I can tell you, we spent the four prime ministers. We spent about 3 hours or 4 hours talking about this matter alone, correspondent banking. That's all we spoke about. That's one subject matter. Correspondent banking, and we have to follow up when we go to Grenada at the end of the month for the CARICOM meeting on some of the recommended actions that we have sought to put in place. So your question is a very important question, and just to say that it's not a question that we are unaware of. This is a question that we've been aware of for several decades, and we've been advocating on it. We've been speaking about it, and we've been working at all levels, whether it's at the central bank, whether it's at the at the IMF level. Whenever we meet with G7 members, we speak to them, the Commonwealth Secretariat, and we will thank Baroness Scotland for really being at the forefront and advocating on our behalf on this. I mean, it's a central issue. Whenever we meet any developed any G7 country, because they're the ones who control the economic world. Yeah.
Sources in Dubai basically saying that notwithstanding their agreement, your agreement to pay $200,000 US a passport, we're being told that MMCE is still offering citizenship for less than the legal price. What is your government doing about this, if in fact that's correct?
Well, our plain view to anybody that before you engage yourself in acquiring Dominican citizenship, you need to advise yourself and be advised of the legal prices in terms of the SRO, which is on the government website. I made it very clear to everybody, to the world. I said so at a conference in Grenada. I said so at a conference in Dubai. I have said so on every occasion. Anybody who we are presented with evidence to show that you acquire citizenship for less than the legal fees, your citizenship will be revoked. Simple as that. Okay? Simple as that. And this is a question that the due diligence firms are mandated to ask during the interview. How much did you pay for the citizenship of Dominica? That's a central question that's been asked with every applicant, and so anybody who acquires citizenship less than what is required to be paid, you'll be revoked.
Dominic, Prime Minister, again, seems that they've started this load shedding issue again. I know a promise was made, to give more capacity. What happens?
So you came in late, but yeah, that's okay. That's okay. So I will just to reiterate my response to your long-standing colleague Kalai. When the issue of load shedding came about with Dominic, the government intervened, and we've always maintained, even the government owns the majority shares in Dominic, we have treated and will continue to treat Dominic as a private company. It is registered under the Companies Act of Dominica. It is not a statutory entity. It's not a department of government. And this is why we have asked as a government, we have never asked Dominic for any concession in respect to the raise the charges and the bills that we owe. We don't ask for that. And I have never called Dominic on any issue, especially in regards to any customer in Dominica. And no minister, no member of parliament is authorized to call Dominic and ask them to waive fees or bills for anybody. If we have to assist somebody, we'll find other ways of assisting people with this. And therefore, Dominic is a private company. So when the load shedding came in, we stepped in as a government. And myself personally led the government's intervention. And the first action was that we provided Dominic with a generator which the government owned. The second action is that we worked with Dominic to lease some generators from the United States that came in and is still here. And we also acquired a 4.8 megawatt generator for Dominic and assisted with putting the infrastructure for its location. And so we've done that. And also we brought in a team from Venezuela to examine the hydro plant. They advised on the parts needed. They advised on what needed to be done. And Dominic was able to follow some of this advice, and we were able to get the hydro back on stream. And we were able to stabilize the production of electricity in Dominica. And of course, as you know, recently Dominic reported that the hydro went down, and as a result of that, it placed too much pressure on the diesel generators, and we've peak demands and so forth, with more of us having AC units in our homes because of the heat, there's a demand. But I will leave to Dominic, as I understand they'll be giving more details on this tomorrow to the press and to the nation, and you'll have an opportunity to quiz them on the specificities of the challenge that they are confronting and what they're doing to respond to the challenge. Okay.
There seemed to be another Meul Choksi kidnapping issue in Dominica. An individual was at the state prison and an order was made, and I saw a letter that he is persona non grata, shipped out of Dominica. And mind you, he has a Kititian passport. And the police purchased a ticket and shipped him to St. Martin. Whatever he may have done, that is okay. You know what I mean? But whatever he may have done, I mean, yes. But the point is that why is the police not going through the legal process to get things done? Why are they going through the back door? And this is not helping Dominica. So due process was not followed. Can you address us on that, please? And people are also, PM, crying on that water bill from Dowasco. That kind of high bill, that just, I don't know, it looked like Dowasco want to make $1 million in quick time. And the other issue is the hospital, medication. And nobody can tell me otherwise. I went to collect medication, and I have evidence that pressure tablets, most of them not available at all. And this is central to people. Something is definitely wrong.
Okay. The issue of due process on this particular individual, and just to say to you, I see you reference the issue that the person had a Kititian passport. Now you could be a citizen of 5 different countries, but you'll only be recognized as a citizen on the document you're coming in with. So if you come in with, if you come in with a different passport, then you'll be considered to be a citizen of that country. You cannot flash another passport and say, oh, by the way, I am so and so. No, this is why when you travel, if you have different passports, you want to know which citizen of which country you're going to be recognized with. Because if you're an American citizen, you're a Dominican citizen, and you travel to, let's say, St. Kitts with an American passport, if something happens to you, they will call the American embassy. If you travel in a Dominican passport, then they'll make contact with the Dominican government, because that's the document you use. And so there were issues surrounding the gentleman I don't want to comment on, because as I understand it, that might be a matter that is still before the courts, and so I don't want to comment on it in such a public way. Okay. The issue of Dowasco, I believe that Dowasco has given its customers up to September 2024 to lodge complaints and concerns and observations regards to the new rates. Just to say to the Dominican public that Dowasco had done an assessment evaluation of the rates that they were charging, and this was done by CDB, and I believe that we should make that document public, so that Dominicans can understand what CDB was recommending and what we eventually went with. And I can say to you, this issue of a rate increase by Dowasco has been with the government for several months. It came to cabinet numerous times and was sent back because we were not satisfied with the level of rates that were going to be asked. I think too we have to put this thing into context. Yes, we have 365 rivers and underground water, but it's not flowing directly from the river to our homes. It is a significant cost. And the reality is, Dowasco has been impacted by numerous natural disasters. And we've had to either borrow money to restore these water systems or provide Dowasco with monies from the Treasury as a grant. And, we've seen situations, for example, during Maria time, we had just commissioned some water systems in September. And a week later, it got washed away completely. The distance that we have to go to have these water catchment areas and bring water in many communities, because you don't have gravity flow, you have to use generators, and you have to connect to Domlec to generate electricity. We have used some limited solar in some cases, but that too has a capital investment as well. And sometimes if there's cloud cover, especially in those areas where you have this, then you have to switch to Dowasco, to Domlec, or to a generator. So it is very costly. And when I became Prime Minister of the country, there were suburban areas in Dominica with no pipe-borne water. No pipe-borne water. And I understand why governments before me did not invest in those water, because they were looking at it from an economic cost benefit standpoint. But I saw it differently. I saw water as being a public good and a need, especially to address health issues, etc., etc. And so the increase in the water rates is not something that the government did in an indiscriminate manner. It is very, very deliberate in terms of how we go about doing it, and very careful in how we go about doing it. And notwithstanding the fact that the rates have been implemented, we have mandated Dowasco to still allow for the public to raise concerns. And if at the end of the day, the concerns which the public raise, there are merits in it, I can say to the public, then we shall review the rates. But I believe that we may need to let some few months pass to see how it's going to work and how it's working, so that we can make adjustments where the adjustments are required. But I can tell you that to run Dowasco is a significant cost. And one of the comforts I want to give the Dominican public is that whatever profits Dowasco may make will not be left at Dowasco. They're going to go into an escrow account. All right? They're going to go in an escrow account that the government will have control over. And if we are faced with a natural disaster, then we'll take those funds to restore the water. Dowasco is not going to go on a spree, because Dowasco itself has to demonstrate some frugality. Because you cannot go and tell people to pay for more water, and you can just walk into a dealership and drive out with 5-6 brand new vehicles when you only need one. And you have to look at your telephone bill. You have to look at your costs. A lot of the discretionary spending must come under control. So if at the end of the day we do an evaluation, so if you give us 6 months, and the government will do an independent evaluation assessment of this and how it's impacting the society and the consumers, and if there is a case for us to review the rates, I give you the assurance that we shall review the rates. But the point is, something had to be given. Do I go and borrow money to deal with Dowasco's recurrent expenditure, or do we ask the consumers to pay a little more so we can sustain the water supply in the country? With all of the natural disasters that we have suffered and the significant loss. So we borrow money from the CDB or from Social Security, and in a few months, this money got washed away. And this is the point we're making to us, the impact of climate change. 85% of monies that we have borrowed in the last 20 years have been to respond to natural disasters, to replace lost and damaged infrastructure. And so people can understand the pain that I have as Prime Minister of this country, and my sheer frustration with the developed countries, and the injustice that they are meting out to us in this world. This injustice that the developed world is meting out to us is akin to slavery. It cannot be right. And it cannot be only governments who talk about these things. All of us must speak about these things. And in Grenada and St. Vincent, these developed countries, they will express empathy. Oh, we're sorry. Oh, my heart is broken. Your heart can be broken. Because you're the cause of it. And we do not want empathy. Grenada and St. Vincent need money now. Barbados' entire west coast has been destroyed and it's relying on beaches to survive. 90% of the fishermen in Barbados have lost their livelihoods. 90%. And you know how difficult to get insurance for this fishermen. So the main selling point of Barbados, which is beaches, have been taken away in less than half an hour. And I look at the people in Carriacou and the circumstance and everything flat. You know? So these are the challenges that we face with. And so it's causing the cost of running the country to be higher. And this is why sometimes you will hear the government hasn't paid this person or the government owing that person. It is as a result of a compounding of challenges. Because, you know, even after Maria, we didn't have the problem of paying people. Even after Maria, we didn't have the problem of paying people. We were paying people, even people who did not work, we were paying people. We were paying the salaries for private sector employees. Then you have COVID, then you have these geopolitical challenges where nobody is seeking to resolve the conflict between Russia and Ukraine as if, well, everybody, the developer is okay with it and let us send more arms, let us give more money. And St. Vincent doesn't need $2 billion US now. Yes, they will welcome it, but can you give them 100 million? If the Prime Minister of Grenada were to get 100 million US, he would do a lot with it. You know, a lot with it. So this is where we're at. Now, the issue of the hospital. We have examined the situation at the hospital. And I believe the issue at the hospital with regards to drugs and pharmaceutical supplies is more one of communication or the lack thereof. I'll give you a classic example. During the preparation of the Hurricane Beryl, there was a report from the Ministry of Health officials to me. Because I take my responsibilities seriously. I went, so they reported to me. And they said to me, Prime Minister, we do not have drug A, we don't have drug B, we don't have drug C. I said, well, how many you don't have? You mean we don't have at all, or we short, or we fall short of the threshold that's required, and so on? Tell me we don't have. So I said, okay, well, it's a Saturday. I said, let me end the meeting there. Go and check for me, and whatever you need, if you need it, I will find a way of fetching it because I can't go into a hurricane without this, and report back to me on Sunday morning. Sunday morning, they reported to me at 11 o'clock Sunday morning to tell me they don't only have the drugs, but they have more than what they need. Because one officer did not take the time to communicate with the one who is dealing with the inventory. And just to say to you, Carly, I have asked and I found out that we do have the hypertension medicine at the hospital. We do have. Yeah. And they sent to me the inventory was done. This is the inventory was done on the weekend. And so I believe that I may have to come back with my friend the Minister of Health so we can speak to the nation and let the nation know the facts. Because while people will say that there are no drugs in Dominica, or we are short on this thing, we are dumping. We are dumping at Labas, at the solid waste landfill, hundreds of thousands of expired drugs. Hundreds of thousands of dollars of expired drugs. What I know, and I've been advised, because I get involved in these things, people say I micromanage and so on, that's okay. But I believe that I want to know for myself. So I go where the information is. I'm not a protocol person. And I'm being told sometimes that to treat a particular ailment, there may be 3 or 5 or 6, 7 different drugs to treat it. We may not have the one that the doctor prefers, but we may have 2 or 3 other options. But people don't take time to find out, to say, okay, let me find out which one we have and prescribe the one that we have. Because those persons who are hypertensive, you know, there's one drug that will affect you as a man, and there's a more expensive one that if you take it, then it can hold you up. No. I like to, you see, I like to speak from a textbook. I like to speak from, you understand what I'm saying? I like to speak from a textbook. And so, and even that drug, I remember some years ago, I told the Ministry of Health going to buy it because I was concerned that we were prescribing the one that affects you and people were not taking it. Right? And I said, look, no matter how expensive the other one is, let's buy some. And let's educate the man on this. Because if you tell a man in his 40s, my brother, he can't do nothing. And when you tell him you take that, it's going to be worse. You understand what I'm saying? So we're not saying that there are times you fall below the threshold or you're waiting for a shipment to come and it may be delayed, and then your supply may be delayed and you may be below the threshold and so forth. We're not saying that. And so what we have done and we're doing in the Ministry of Health is that we're restructuring the CMS. We bring in additional staff, new positions, more staff, and we are also improving on the inventory system. So we brought in, because I want to know, when people criticize the government, no matter how outlandish criticism is, I take it seriously, no matter who criticizes the government. And so we brought in the OECS PPS, independently of us, to come and examine the situation for us. And so the issue of the dumping of drugs and so on, they're the ones who told me that in the document. And so they're saying that we're overbuying in a number of areas. You understand? So we may need 100,000 or something, but we buy 300,000. And this thing have a shelf life. And when a drug expires today, my brother, you can't get to somewhere tomorrow. You understand? And so we owe some suppliers, and we have placed in the budget estimates that amount. And once the budget is passed, we'll amortize and pay everybody we owe. Every man jack. Understand? But just to remind the country, when it comes to health care, my brother, this government and myself as the Prime Minister of this country, we've always put it at the center of our economic and social development. Always. And the investment we have made, and I want Americans to be careful. Let us not create a situation where there is none. Because when we give impressions of something not working when it's really working, we run the risk of allowing people to have that in their psyche. And they may not want to go and get health care. And the reality is, I have been to the hospital many times. Many times. And the extraordinary work that's been done at the hospital is amazing. You saw Danny Lugay, the former member of parliament, you know, member of parliament. All fairness to be as honest this time, to say it publicly that he went to the Dominica-China Friendship Hospital, the eye clinic, the Bender Stratford eye clinic, and he came from being blind to seeing. He said he was blind in one eye for many years. I didn't even know that. And he said that that surgery he did in Dominica, at the Dominica-China Friendship Hospital. And there are so many positive stories, my brother, that if the doctors to stand up and to say the facts, you'll be amazed of the kind of things that doctors and nurses and ward aides and the whole hospital structure, the Ministry of Health, are doing at this hospital. Amazing work. I'm not saying everything is perfect, but we cannot say that things are not better where healthcare is concerned now than it was 20 or 25 or 30 years ago in Dominica. We cannot say that. And when it comes to shortage of stuff, if we have to charter a plane to go and get the drugs, my brother, trust me, we'll do it. Because we believe healthcare is important and so forth. So Carl, I will, Dr. Mark is there, so we can tell you which one you better take. The young Kurt is the better one, yeah. Yeah, the better one. The better man. There's a herb you can use to, I have some at my home, I can give you some plants, you know. Okay, any other questions?
Good morning, Honorable Prime Minister, Jansen Hiller, Kyrie FM. So I have two items for you this afternoon. Given that Dominica has signed an MOU which doubles the price for our CBI program, how does that affect the program and the country's economy? And the second question is, Cabrit's Marina has raised concern within the environmentalist community here in Dominica. So much so that a petition has been started to pose to the government to reconsider placing the marina on crucial land that serves as connection to our natural heritage and plays a hand in climate change mitigation, although on a small scale. What is your take on this?
Yeah, thank you very much. The issue of the memorandum of agreement that we signed with the other OECS countries, the CBI program, and subsequently our introduction of higher fees for citizenship program, I don't believe it will adversely affect our program. The reality is there's a demand out there, and I believe that those who have the means and who are bona fide applicants will continue to apply, and thereby we will end up hopefully will benefit more from the program and so forth. So I don't see it. I believe it will strengthen the integrity of our program. And we in Dominica, outside of the MOA, there are some other things that we're doing to continue to enhance the transparency, the integrity of our program, and of course the future sustainability of our program. And at some subsequent time, I will announce to the country some additional actions we're taking. The AG has drafted legislation and so forth for this. So I believe we're on the right track. And these are things that we need to do, and we have to continue to do. You know, in this system, you have to continue to assess and evaluate where the risks are, and to de-risk yourself, and to eliminate the risk as far as practically possible. And I think the MOA it will help us do that. And in addition to the MOA, some of the actions we've taken nationally here in Dominica will help us de-risk some aspect of the program and put the program in a much better footing to be able to stand the scrutiny, continue to stand the scrutiny of our independent arbiters. Okay, the issue of the Cabrit's Marina location. The reality is, my brother, it is not me who said to put the marina there, you know. Long before I was born, there's always the plan to put in the marina there. Long before, I think it must be 1968. I was born in 1972. Nobody raised objection to the 1968 document. And every successive government attempted to build a marina there. As a matter of fact, in the Eugenia Charles days, on the other side, by the Moroccan Hotel, we gave the land to, ACAT, and ACAT wanted to cut part of Dominica completely off Dominica and create an island. So it is not a two-day thing. And if you go to look at document, I saw a document that Dr. Honeychurch presented some years ago, even along the foot of the Cabrits, they were recommended to put villas there. Villas. And the Lord gives us these things not to cause us to be poor, but to make responsible use of these things. And in every national park over the world, across the world, you have hotels and restaurants and theme parks in those national parks. So people benefit in job creation for this thing. So it's not a two-day thing. And so if people genuinely have a concern, then come to us. Say, Skerrit, look, I want to talk to you. When can I meet you to talk to you about our concerns about the marina? But when people go on the right to international organizations, and they don't have and if you want us to know you right, you should copy us. They don't copy us. Then the people send a copy of a letter to me saying, we received this from Dominica objecting to the marina. You remember the United Workers' Party wrote to UNESCO and others when we were building the Kempinski Hotel and objected to this. And if you go to the Hansard, because you look like a bright fellow, if you go to the Hansard and you do the research at the Parliament, at the time that we went to Parliament to get the approval of the land, you will see what the opposition people said. And I believe Thompson Funk may have been a senator back then. And the person leading the charge against this was Senator Baptiste. Read what they said against the marina, against the hotel. The reality is, all of us who know Portsmouth and who know the swamp area, this place was a dump. That's where people were dumping rubbish for centuries. And as a matter of fact, where we're going to put the marina, we had approved, and not me first, Dame Eugenia Charles first had approved for the Americans to build a marine base for the police there. And we adopted it. And we even had a groundbreaking there for the marina. The American ambassador came down there, we went there and so on. Unfortunately, we had to relocate it and we told them, let's put it towards the Cabrits area. And so since 1968, and I just find that in Dominica, my brother, that somebody's, people say they want development, and when it starts happening, then they say it should happen. So every government tried to build an international airport. Now we'll hear people who say, well, why do we need an international airport? And why do we want it now? Why don't we wait till 2030, 2035, 2040? Why should we wait? The young person who waiting for an opportunity doesn't have the time to wait. The farmer who wants to increase his sale doesn't have tomorrow to wait. The small business owner who is planting flowers in the valleys and bells don't have tomorrow to wait. And if we have an opportunity to do these things now, why shouldn't we do it now? When it has eluded us for several decades. And I say to people, don't look at me, the one leading the charge of doing it. It's not about me. It's about the country. It so happened to be that I'm the Prime Minister of the country advancing these projects. But it's not about me. I believe, and we all believe in Dominica, that these things will help with the continued transformation of the country. And so, if they have concerns, we're more than willing to sit down with them and to hear their concerns and so forth. But this is a 1968 recommendation. It was not 2024 recommendation. And I do not believe that there's any government in the history of Dominica outside of Liberal government who has taken due recognition and cognizance of the environment than us in this government. None. And for me personally, nobody can tell me about my commitment to the environment. I practice it. I don't talk about it, I practice it on a daily basis. And so we're very mindful of that, very, very mindful of that. Yes, Matt, please. Yeah, please, thank you.
Prime Minister, a recommendation was made earlier this year by the International Monetary Fund to reduce the NEP wage bill by 33%, or $16.7 million. How do you intend to address that?
That's the IMF speaking, not me. The reality is the NEP, National Employment Program. Yeah. They're free to recommend whatever they want to me, but I'm not obliged to accept it. And I want to say to Dominican people that the NEP is playing a crucial role in the advancement of the country. I mean, and there are different components to it. The NEP people who provide care to the senior citizens of Dominica. The NEP people who provide afternoon classes to a lot of the children who are slow learners. And the NEP people provide beautification and cleaning services to the entire country. And that's if you ask me, the beautification and cleaning of Dominica is one of the most important tasks. And I will be the first to accept, and we've started that process, of examining the NEP with a view to improving its efficiency. And I believe through efficiency, we can reduce on the cost of the NEP, but not necessarily reducing on the NEP in any significant way. The NEP, as long as this government is in office, is there to stay, because it is playing a crucial role in the society. So we're not going to touch it as a policy position of the government. We will continue to examine it and improve it, because one of the and what we have said to the minister for the NEP and the cabinet subcommittee that has been appointed is for us to go back to the original mandate of the NEP, because one of the original mandates of the NEP was that especially those who are on the job attachment, you really should be showing efforts at seeking employment, permanent employment. Then you also have situations where people are working in private sector entities for many years and have not been appointed in those organizations. And therefore, we're going to be having a conversation with a lot of the private sector entities to say, this person has been there for 9 years. Why haven't you absorbed the person as your permanent staff? So these are the kind of things that we're looking at. But in terms as a policy framework and so on, I don't believe in taking a knife and passing a hot knife and passing through the NEP and just cutting it indiscriminately. Also, I'm not brushing aside. The IMF is free to recommend to me what they feel to recommend. The IMF doesn't live in Dominica. I live among the people, and I know how important the NEP is to many families in Dominica, and I know what it means to those who are employed, and I also know what it means to those who are receiving the services by those who are employed under the NEP, and it is significant. And so the IMF is in Washington. I walk the streets of Dominica. And so while I have great relationship with them, I have great respect for them. Not everything they say to me I accept. They look at things and find it me. They look at things from a fiscal standpoint, a dollar and cents standpoint. I look at human beings standpoint. A government must have a heart and not only concerned about fiscal stuff. Fiscal stuff is important, and we've been very responsible, as you can see. We've been very responsible government, but we also must be responsive. And at a time when cost of living has gone up for people, this is not a time for us to send anybody home. We have to hold this train and do what we have to do. Cut on things that we don't need, like telephone use, overseas travel, and these things I'm going to cut on dramatically so that the monies can be saved and those can go into paying who we paid in Dominica. And so I'm going to cut travel for government officials by 70%. 70%. Yeah.
Prime Minister, can you tell us when construction of a geothermal energy plant will begin? And once in operation, do we get the impression that electricity rates for Dominican consumers will be slashed? So that's the first question. The long-standing issue between the Dominica Air and Seaport Authority and Stevie Dawes That long-standing matter has been around, and I know you have spoken on it. I know, in fact, you have met the stevedores a few weeks ago. Can that matter be addressed sometime this year? And can you at least tell us what the government is doing now in terms of visa-free access to the United Kingdom? Thank you very much.
The issue of the geothermal, I've got a report there. We have received on Ireland the first batch of power plant components, and that was transported to the site on July 10. Okay, the commencement of power plant civil works is expected this month, July 2024. We intend to award the contract for the transmission network between the months of July and August of this year. They've gone through the tender, they've received the tender documents, they've gone through it, and they're in a position now to award a contract, and that will be done July, August this year. And the projected commissioning of the power plant, we're looking at December 2025. The reality is this is why we've been investing, and I'll be the first to admit that we spend an inordinate amount of money. And if you ask me, plenty money on this geothermal project over the last 20-something years. But we have been committed to it because we have been advised and we're satisfied that it can help reduce the cost of electricity in Dominica. Because it will not be subjected to inflation by way of importation of fossil fuels and the uncertainty of supply and the cost of supply. And so this is why we remain committed to the geothermal plant, and we are happy that we are seeing some light at the end of the tunnel. And so in the next years and some months that we can start benefiting from this long-standing investment that we've made. It has been costly. I mean, as you know, we borrowed money from the World Bank in the tune of $104 million for the transmission lines. That's just one component, So it's a significant investment. And so our hope and prayer is that we can successfully complete the implementation of that project, and that Dominicans can see the benefits of this investment by way of reduced electricity bills, both for the consumers and for the private sector entities. And those persons who run private businesses know of the cost. If you have a supermarket and you have to run this cold storage 24/7, and it's a significant cost. And if you have a hotel, and then when people go in a hotel room, they leave the doors wide open and the AC is still on. And you understand the cost of that. It's a huge cost. Energy is a major cost affecting everybody, both domestic consumers and of course commercial consumers. And our effort is to harness and to maximize the use of renewable sources of energy to generate electricity for us in Dominica. So we look forward to December 2025 during the commissioning. I think you asked me about the airport and whether seaport workers, stevedores. Yeah. So the stevedores. I'm satisfied that we will conclude this matter way before the end of the year. And I am satisfied that the stevedores will be happy at the end of the day that finally this matter has come to a close. And I have inserted myself in the process, and I will give certain directions at the appropriate time on that. The issue of visa freeze, we continue to work with the British government. We received a letter from the last Minister of Home Affairs, Mr. Cleverly, on this, and it was a very positive letter. There's one outstanding, ongoing matter that we have to bring to some conclusion, and we're working on that. There's been some pushback from a legal standpoint, but I believe that we're going to be pushing a little hard on it. We'll be writing to the new minister to update her on what we have done and what we're doing, and to respond to the letter of her predecessor on this matter. So I believe that all things considered, and the tone of the engagement with the UK government that we've had over the last several months, I'm satisfied at some point we will be able to see visa-free travel to the United Kingdom. And of course, some of the additional actions, which are not actions that they ask us for, or anybody has asked us for, but we should believe are important for the sustainability and the improvement and the transparency of the program that we are doing by ourselves. We believe that those actions will place us even a stronger position to make a case for the reintroduction of visa-free regime between Dominica and the United Kingdom. So we remain hopeful, and we continue to engage the UK government in a respectful, transparent manner.
Okay, the people of Portsmouth, they want to know the street lights on the coast in terms of replacing it, and also on the eastern area, northeastern area. They want to know what is the update on work on the netball facility in Portsmouth and the link road, Petit Savant, etc. Can you give us an update as to where government is at this point in time? I'm the pilot now for Portsmouth, so I ask in questions.
I'm sure if they asked the parliament, she would be able to give them all the response to this, because she's been spearheading the indoor facility. So we have approved for the indoor facility for Portsmouth that would have an indoor basketball court and also a multi-purpose court, have it covered and so forth. And it was also been built at Benjamin's Park. But when we started to dig and to do the soil test, we recognized that the Benjamin Park was still very waterlogged. As you know, Portsmouth is below sea level. And we had to look for a new location for the construction of that facility. You would have seen that we built some tennis courts there already. But the indoor facility, which is a huge facility, the size of what you see in Massac, but in a more modern style, we have found a new location, we've acquired the lands, and then we have given the contractor the go-ahead to commence. So I believe that work should commence in the next week or so on this indoor facility for Portsmouth. With regards to the street lights, we spent millions of dollars to put street lights across Dominica. And the reality is, if you go to the United States of America, you don't see any street lights in any rural communities, But in Dominica, you have street lights in rural communities, the furthest point in Dominica. And we place street lights along the entire length and breadth of the west coast of Dominica. And a significant number of them have been stolen. And you know why they steal them, Kale? Guys are planting marijuana. And the grade of marijuana they have require some heat and some light. And so they, no, I have not told them to plant. No, I never tell them that. You mustn't repeat gossip, Like I tell them already. But don't repeat gossip. And so people are still in the street lights for that. The solar components. And so millions of dollars have gone to waste. It was such a beauty to see all the street lights along the west coast and across Dominica, and the bases that you see cost a lot of money. When I saw the contracts, you come to me as Minister of Finance, $450,000 there, $800,000 there to a contractor to put those bases, So it's a huge cost, and all of those things, Then you have to now find monies now to replace those, and now monies that you should be doing some other things in the communities. So these are the kind of practices that we have to deal with. So we spend millions to purchase the street lights, millions of dollars to purchase the street lights. We spend millions to erect them because they're not cheap to erect. You understand? And then we have to find millions now to replace them because of vandalism and theft. Courtesy, your final question. I must give courtesy after all. The road, Petit Savant. Well, the people of Dalis told me, and they told the PAL rep, Dr. Williams, who is here with me today, that if she does that road for them, that if she put that bridge for them, that's it. There's nothing else Dalis needs whatsoever in the rest of the term. They say, PAL rep, you should do that, you'll be the best PAL rep Dalis will have ever seen in our history, both pre and post-independence. And this PAL rep joined forces with the PAL rep for Petit Savant. Right? The fisheries expert. And these people will come to my office every other day. advocating and pushing and pushing. And I consider that they have done a fantastic job as PAL reps in advocating on this matter. And what we did is we have these Bailey bridges from the East Coast Road, which belong to the government. And Mr. Gadakan Company agreed to erect it for us at no cost to him, no cost to us. Okay, and so they joined forces with us, and the bridge is near completion. We will do the approaches, the concrete on both ends, and the main structure of the bridge is up. I'm hoping to visit there with the PAL soon, but I can say that these two PALs have been on top of the action on a daily basis. So they have kept their promise, because they should play the PAL speech at a luncheon. And I'm hoping that they will play theirs now of the promise they made to her. And they keep their promise of re-electing Dr. Williams as the unopposed PAL rep whenever elections are called, because she has kept to her promise of connecting this road. Because I went there many times. They said, if we do that, I tell them, what about housing? I'm scared of housing. Don't worry about housing. I tell them, what about the farm access road? Tell me, Skerrit, that come later. I said, well, what about housing lands? They said, no, we're interested in that. Bridge. If you give us that connection there, Skerrit, then all problems solved. We have to come back with the list and campaign and so on. So I look forward to that. What a wonderful way to end the press conference today. Goodies, okay, I have a question.
Prime Minister, you've said that the absence of an opposition leader in Parliament is not a crisis. The question is, how do we resolve that matter to ensure that Dominica has a leader of the opposition?
Yeah, I hear people talk about it. We have a constitutional crisis. To me, a constitutional crisis only comes about if you don't have a prime minister and you don't have a president. I mean, the leader of the opposition has some limited functions in the constitution, where the prime minister is required to consult with the leader of the opposition. Outside of that, there are no executive roles of the leader of the opposition. All of the others are parliamentary roles. Outside of the consultation to appoint the chief of police, or the chairperson of the Police and Public Service Commission, and a couple of members of the commission, and electoral and all others and so on. There's not really any other matters really, executive roles. So we don't have a crisis. If you recall, Curtis, after the 2009 general elections, we had no leader of the opposition for several months because Mr. Prevost was not prepared to support Mr. Edison James as leader of the opposition. And this is why they ended up with the compromise candidate of Hector Sparks John. That's how Hector became the PAL rep, the leader of the opposition, because Mr. James and Mr. Prevost were not seeing eye to eye. And so Mr. James refused, Mr. Prevost refused to give his support to Mr. James. And so Mr. James, avoiding embarrassment, did not want to pursue because Hector was supporting Mr. James. But Mr. James did not want to go and with two people out of three supporting him, himself and Hector. And so they came to a compromise of having Hector John as the leader of the opposition, but for several months. And so there being no leader of the opposition, when I would have advised Dr. Liverpool, who was the president at the time, I would say that I'm unable to consult with the leader of the opposition because there is none. And the president was obligated to proceed with my advice, you understand, in the absence of a leader of the opposition. And the same will happen. The reality is, managing governments and being in a leadership position and managing political processes is a very challenging thing. It's not easy because you deal with so many different personalities, so many different interests. And this is a manifest in itself, and this is symptomatic of the Workers' Party. This is why you now have different factions there, where Mr. Linton is trying to disqualify Mr. Thompson Fountain from being a candidate, because he's saying if you live in overseas, you can't vote in Dominica. And if Mr. if Mr. Thompson Funkin, Dr. Funkin can't vote in Dominica, then how can he be the leader of the Workers' Party? You understand what I'm saying? So all of this machination. So you have different factions in the party, and so as I understand, there was an agreement between the two of them, and it fell apart. It's unfortunate because it's always good to have a leader of the opposition, you know. And this is why I said I am minded to give consideration to the member for Marigot, equal time that the Minister of Finance will take to respond, so that we have more contribution from the opposition side of the House as part of the debate.
Why not just support?
Because she had 2 bites of the cherry already. And then by now it should have been the Marigot guy. You understand? And so we'll see how it goes on 26. But
Have you already made an offer to him?
No, I don't have to make the offer to him. We'll just present it to Parliament, and if he accepts, he will speak for equal time. If he doesn't, then he'll speak for half an hour. But if he has more than half an hour of things to say, then he might take the time, I don't know. But you see, politics is serious business, eh? And these things happen when sometimes people don't come into this thing for the right reason. You come to serve, and serving is difficult. This is a vocation. This is a job you get trained nowhere for. And you have to have the empathetic spirit entrenched in you. Otherwise you'll have problems. But if they allow me, I can sit with them and see how I can negotiate with all them to solve the problem. The other, so I don't know. I'm offering my services to them in conflict resolution, and but it's not going to affect the government functions. And you see, I said within the Workers' Party, there's some talent. People who support the Workers' Party. There's some talent. There's some bright people there. There's some people who mean well. I don't. It's not necessary to name names, but the problem they have in the Workers' Party is that these people are not using their skills and their talents, right, to advise people, advise themselves. They advise them from a vantage point of hate and envy. This is why, no matter when elections are called, the Workers' Party will lose, because they do not have the entrenched ability to properly advise themselves. And so they have allowed so many of their kind supporters' investments to go to waste. You understand? When you're in this thing, you have to understand it's not about you, it's about the people who have invested their time and their resources and their efforts and the sacrifice into this thing. And you have to do everything possible to ensure that you at least give them some hope and confidence. Snap, no. I mean, I am, I hear the reasons why. I hear the reasons why people say there might be a snap election. They say, "Well, so what's happening in Dominica? All these projects, they've never seen that before. Well, you see how Skerrit there, boy, and all these projects, and Skerrit met with the pot workers, he met with the nurses, he met with the police, and he met with the medical doctors at the hospital, and and something up with all of these projects happening." Unprecedented. See, something up. Fellas, let's get ready, boys. Don't trust Skerrit on that. You see Skerrit do it in 2022, you can do it again. But we have work to do. We are focusing on the governance of the country and delivering to the people, and focusing on the big ticket items, which we believe will help transform the way of life of all our people in Dominica. And I am satisfied that if we can get, by the grace of God, this huge project in, it will certainly place us in a much better position to compete and to do better than we're doing and to give hope, greater hope and confidence to the current and succeeding generations of Dominicans. And that's our commitment. That's my focus now. So I'm not in the campaign spirit now. I'm in the spirit of governance and delivering and addressing whatever structural or systemic challenges that we have currently. And we're confident that we can resolve those issues. And the minister will articulate in the budget a plan to amortize our debt to everybody who we owe for goods and services to the country and so on in his budget address. So thank you very much, and God bless our country now.